What if I told you that someone once walked into a government building in Paris, convinced 5 of the city's most powerful businessmen that he had the authority to sell the Eiffel Tower, and then did it? And what if I told you he came back 6 months later and tried to do it again? This is the story of Victor Lustig, the man who didn't just con people out of money. He conned them out of one of the most famous landmarks on Earth. Twice. Before we talk about the Eiffel Tower, you need to understand who Victor Lustig was. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in Hostenay, a small town in what is now the Czech Republic. From a young age, he was gifted with 2 things: a razor-sharp mind and absolutely zero conscience. By his 20s, he was running cons across Europe, on ocean liners, in casinos, in hotel lobbies. He spoke 5 languages fluently. He dressed impeccably. He had the kind of charm that made people want to trust him. And he had rules. Lustig actually wrote down what he called his 10 commandments for con men. Things like, be a patient listener, never boast, let the other person feel smarter than you. He wasn't just winging it. This man had a philosophy. By 1925, he had already pulled off dozens of scams across Europe and America. But nothing would come close to what he was about to do in Paris. It's the spring of 1925. Paris is buzzing. The city is recovering from World War I, and everywhere you look, there's reconstruction, renovation, rebuilding. Lustig reads a newspaper article that catches his eye. The article mentions that the Eiffel Tower, built as a temporary structure for the 1889 World's Fair, is getting expensive to maintain. The city is struggling with upkeep costs, and that's when the idea hit him. What if he sold it? Here's what he did. He had fake government stationery printed, official-looking, embossed. He gave himself the title, Deputy Director General of the Ministère des Postes et Télégraphes, essentially a made-up but very real-sounding government role. He then sent invitations to 6 of Paris's top scrap metal dealers. The letter? Strictly confidential. They were to meet at the prestigious Hôtel des Crayons, one of the fanciest hotels in the city, to discuss a sensitive government matter. The dealers arrived. Lustig greeted them in a tailored suit. He sat them down and told them in complete seriousness, "Gentlemen, the French government has made a difficult decision. The Eiffel Tower has become too costly to maintain. It will be demolished, and we are soliciting sealed bids for the scrap metal." He swore them to secrecy. The government didn't want a public backlash. He even took them on a tour of the tower, official cars, a real viewing. He walked them through it like a man who owned the place. Out of the 5 dealers, one man was hooked harder than the others. His name was André Poisson. Poisson was ambitious. He was newer to Parisian high society and desperately wanted to prove himself. And Lustig, who was an expert at reading people, saw that immediately. Poisson got suspicious at one point. Something felt slightly off. So he asked Lustig directly about a few inconsistencies. And here's where Lustig showed his genius. Instead of defending himself, he leaned in close and confided in Poisson. He told him that, yes, his government salary wasn't much, and that he was, let's say, open to a little something extra on the side. In other words, he implied he wanted a bribe. And that completely disarmed Poisson, because suddenly this wasn't a suspicious situation anymore. This was Paris. Government officials taking bribes? That was normal. That was how things worked. The bribe actually made Lustig more credible. Poisson paid what historians estimated around $70,000 in today's money as the winning bid for the Eiffel Tower. Lustig took the money, thanked him warmly, and left Paris on the next train. Now here's the part that makes this story legendary. Lustig waited. He waited for the police. He waited for his name in the papers. Nothing happened. Why? Because André Poisson was too embarrassed to go to the police. Think about it. How do you walk into a police station and say, "I tried to buy the Eiffel Tower from a random man at a hotel, and I gave him all my money"? You don't. You stay silent, and you hope nobody finds out. And Lustig? He realized this. He realized that the con was self-sealing. The bigger the embarrassment, the safer he was. So, he went back to Paris. 6 months later, he gathered another group of scrap metal dealers, pulled the exact same con, and got another victim to bite. This time, the victim did go to the police. But by then, Lustig had already vanished, likely laughing on a train somewhere headed to America. Lustig's career didn't end in Paris. He went on to become one of the biggest counterfeiters in U.S. history, even crossing paths with Al Capone. He was finally caught in 1935. At his arrest, authorities found on him a list of aliases, 47 of them. 47 fake identities. He was sentenced to 20 years in Alcatraz. He died there in 1947 of pneumonia. He was 57 years old. His death certificate listed his occupation simply as apprentice salesman, which, honestly, feels like one last joke. The Eiffel Tower still stands today, untouched and unsold. But in 1925, for a brief moment in history, one man convinced others that it could belong to them. Twice. And perhaps the most unsettling question is not how he did it, but whether, under the right circumstances, we might have believed him too. If you found this story as wild as I did, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment below. I want to know, would you have fallen for it?